Good morning and welcome everyone to the 16th Annual Growing Online Learning Conference presented by Illinois Community Colleges Online. The theme for the 2024 conference is AI, Transforming Education for Tomorrow. We hope that this year's conference offers you ideas and strategies to engage students with effective use of artificial intelligence. I'm Holly Ray from McHenry County College. Thank you for being with us today. Before we start, ILCO would like to thank Heartland Community College for providing the web conferencing platform for use in this year's conference. Please note that captioning is available for the conference session. Our schedule, briefly for the 3 days, is on the screen. It can also be found at the conference website at ilco.net. Links to attend the live sessions will be found on the conference website and your registration confirmation email. If you have any questions on accessing the sessions, please contact Jeff New, just jeff.newell@illinois.gov. Recordings of these sessions and handouts will be available at the conference site following the conference. A friendly reminder for our attendees, we ask everyone to please stay muted when not speaking. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. And now our presentation this morning is Integrating AI into Writing Curriculum with Ann Humphrey from McHenry County College. Thank you, Ann. Take it away.
Great, thank you. And well, good morning, everyone. And I don't know how many Growing Online Learning meetings I've been to, but certainly not all 16, but I'm glad to be here today. And I'm gonna tell you what I'm doing this semester, you know, with the caveat, right, that this is fast moving and I may have a different approach next semester. But I'm gonna show you why also. So when the AI hit the fan, so to speak, one thing I noticed was that I had a fair number of students just assuming that I wouldn't know what it was or understand. And that seemed like an early thing to conquer, right? In other words, like if the students had the knowledge that their faculty members were tracking with AI and investigating it and understanding what it would do, automatically then that might discourage them from using it in an inappropriate way. But the other thing that was almost immediately evident, right, is that there are appropriate ways to use it. So what I'm going to advocate for this morning, if this seems rational to you, is that you investigate what would be the appropriate way for students in your courses to use AI and then actually just train them to do it. With the standing knowledge, right, that this is for now, for this semester, for the current state of AI. Whoops, I went one screen too far. So I said that. I've been saying that in classes, right? Last semester and this semester. Well, here's what we're going to do right now. Right now, this is what we're going to do. And then this could shift. Like this could even shift before the end of the semester. But this is the plan, right? And the rules I made for composition, for English composition, were that they shouldn't use AI for any finished sentences, paragraphs, or essays, or copy paste any sentences or paragraphs from it, but that they could use it for brainstorming. And then I trained them how to do that. So that's what I decided was appropriate and useful for my class. And there were reasons why I decided that that's what was useful. In general, AI wouldn't create the essays that I was looking for anyway, with examples, specific examples that were real. I insist on that, and I wouldn't get that from AI. And I experimented enough with it to tell. So the first thing I'd advocate for is investigating your assignments, like actually pasting them right into a chat bot and seeing what it gives you. And when I did that, I found out a little bit to my relief that even though it did some things well, in general, it wouldn't produce anywhere near the essay that I was looking for. And for years, I've achieved minimal plagiarism results by being really specific with what I want all the papers to be in terms of the order of the paragraphs and the points and all of that, and the structure. And that was helpful all this time in my career. So I still had that going. And even if I told the AI make this many paragraphs with this many sources, etc., it didn't necessarily do what I wanted. But more than that, it just wrote very generic work, very generic work. So for those of you who are English instructors, if you haven't done this yet, I'd encourage you to go and paste your assignment right into a chatbot and see what you get. But it's a lot of adjectives, a lot of description that is meaningless or could be written by anyone. And this is somewhat controversial even in my own department, but because not everyone wants this, but I want them to use local examples, things that they have seen, and not to use it by inserting themselves into the paper, but just to use them as examples. And so, I cover the phrasing of that, and AI wouldn't give that to them. And I even asked, put in examples, put in local examples from McHenry County, Illinois. And I could tell it was just making things up. So it was, that was kind of encouraging. But then I went to the next phrase of, okay, well, how do I correctly use it? How do I get it to give me something I can use? And this is what I came up with. So if we do this, if we figure out what is the appropriate and effective use in our course, and then we train the students in that appropriate and effective use, which will be different for each of us, right? It has a lot of advantages. First of all, their use is far more likely to be appropriate and effective. And I do notice some improved work if they use the AI appropriately and effectively. But also, since they're going to go out there in the world where AI is, it will train them to meet whatever the expectation is and the circumstance that they're in. So in my class, here's the expectation. In someone else's classes, here's the expectation. You need to use it that way in that situation, and that translates to any professional situation they might be in. I also think it's very important at the bottom, right? Just modeling that I'm being proactive and investigating and aware. That seems to impact them positively. So what did I find out? Well, no, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead one slide. So the first thing I did was I started to explain what I had learned as to the limitations of the large language model, ChatGPT and others, right? They're mostly aware of ChatGPT, and that's mostly what I used, but I just discussed, here's what I found out. And here's why it's a problem to use it in an inappropriate way, right? So I discussed with them and I showed them examples, right? Yeah, it generates these plausible sentences, but there's no voice. There's no genuine examples. There's no connection to our community or our school, or which I insist that they write about, some local connection. And it's not you. It's very generic. And I showed them a generic example, which I think I have time for here. One of Holly's department members, Pete, had showed me this essay that he had AI generate about trains. And he said, I asked it for a train essay, and here's what I got. And it was just a spectacularly generic essay, like to the point that I just laughed, And so I went and asked it for a train essay. Since I know a little bit about trains, my grandfather and my father were both railroad men. And And I use this as a learning example, and I'd encourage you all to do the same, right? So, first I just asked a general question like, hey, write me an essay about trains, and it gave me some paragraphs and some ideas. And then I just got more specific. And I said, now write me an essay about a first train ride showing writer's voice. Here's where I learned it doesn't use any writer's voice. I remember my first train ride. I wouldn't write anything like this, right? And then I said, now show writer's voice with original ideas. And there was nothing original in here, nothing that I could attach to any specific person or place or time, really. And I said, add specific places and people. So I'm just trying desperately to get it to make an essay that would be anything that I would consider to be the essay I wanted to look at. And it makes plausible essays, but not what I want. Now, I've been teaching a long time, like 30 years. So I have really I've gotten to the point where I'm really specific with that, what I'm looking for. And that helped me here. But I think if I were earlier in my career and I put something in here and it was exactly the essay that I would accept, then I would be prompted, that would prompt me to think, well, how do I want to change my assignment? Because once you see what it will produce in response to your assignment, yeah, I think that then becomes the question, will it produce something competent? And what does that mean? So I asked a few other questions, like about sailboats, because that's another thing that I know something about. And I did the same exercise, just narrowing. This is just my way of double checking. And then I got to this. I thought, okay, how do I want the students to use it? Like, what would be appropriate? And I had seen someone at our college at one point just ask for a list and note that that was a thing that ChatGPT does well. It produces lists. So if you say, give me a list of all of the reasons why college tuition is going up, or whatever the topic is for the paper, it'll give you a list, right? And so I just asked it for a list about trains, importance of trains. And then I thought, well, what if I just pick one item from this list and I dig down and I get more examples? So I just focused on emotional effects. It gave me more. And then I just picked one of those, patriotic connections, and it gave me more. And I'm basically showing you the experiment that I did that led me to the training I did with my students. I decided from this that what was useful for my particular papers in my course was lists, because it would cause them to be able to dig down like this. Here I'm just doing nation building and trains. And then here I decided to do something which would involve more critical thinking, right? Compare nation building to puberty. I just picked puberty off the top of my head because I just wanted to see how it would do. Well, it did pretty well, and I thought, okay, if I put in the assignment to compare two very different things, the list here would still be useful, and then the students could make paragraphs. And I was kind of testing, if I put in two very different things, will it be able to compare? Well, the answer is yes, it can compare. But I don't want ChatGPT to write those paragraphs because, again, it won't have those personal examples or voice or local examples. Because I even went around and asked for personal examples and the next phrase, and it just gives generic things. Like, here's what it adds for a personal example for nation building for trains. Consider the example of post-colonial India, which underwent a transformative process after gaining independence in 1947. But I want them to write about McHenry County, or at least about Chicago, or at least about Illinois, not about India. ChatGPT doesn't have anywhere near that much stuff, right? It just draws from the bulk of the internet, what most people are saying. So most people who have commented on this topic have talked about India. Well, India is very interesting, but that's not my assignment. So now I just looked out there because I already have these assignments that are fairly difficult where I want them to talk about local situations, and that's their topic. And those are their examples. But if you run your assignment through the generator and then you see what it gives you, you can tweak it so you have a similar kind of effect. So anyway, I just saved all of this basically for today. And then I asked it for more examples and I got more examples, but they still were real general. Japan, post-World War II, post-apartheid South Africa, post-Soviet Ukraine. Interesting examples, not McHenry County, Illinois, right? So now let me go back to my other share here. And I see questions coming, Holly, which I'm excited about. So back to this. I started with just telling the students, this is why I want you to be careful in all circumstances in how you use this technology. It's interesting technology, it can be very helpful, but there are correct and incorrect ways to use it, just like any other technology, right? And sometimes, you know, we're still training them on how to like not use their cell phones in the middle of class. So sometimes they need a lot of training and proper use of technology, but this is what I said. I tell them why it's plagiarism. It synthesizes comments from multiple sources. And I tell them why it's not generating college level work. It's not generating new ideas. It's putting together the most common ideas. It's integrating the work of multiple people without attribution. That's a big problem. There are websites advocating that if you give the prompt, you've given attribution. But of course, if you run the prompt again, you get a completely different essay. And even then, that's not attribution because it's drawing from thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. The wide bank of samples. And then the most important down at the bottom, it just makes stuff up. So it can include factual errors, logical errors, and it just makes up sources too. So I think I've got them on the page, right? This using it to make your whole essay is not going to generate a college level essay, and it's certainly not for this class. And you know, I think honestly, almost right there, you could stop because they then get it. Oh, okay. But it's more powerful yet, I think, if we figure out the way that they can use it effectively. So again, for my comp classes, I focused on those lists because one thing that we're always getting is really general thesis statements with extremely general subpoints. And the most common comment that I have to make to the first batch of thesis statements is, yes, this is true, but this, when you write this up, if you wrote out what really would explain all of this, it would be several thousand pages. So you're going to need a narrow way down. So I know that that's a dominant problem in the essays in Comp 1 and Comp 2 is narrowing way down. And I was excited, like this AI list, make a more narrow list thing is going to help. That is going to get me those much more narrow topics. So I told them, okay, let's practice this. And I actually did this on the second day of class. This semester, I did it right away on the second day of class. Last semester, I wasn't so quick on the draw because, you know, this was unfolding and I was still thinking about it. But this semester, I put it right on the second day and I had them type in there an idea, you know, any idea about anything they know something about, like the trains, and then do that narrowing exercise, list, narrowing, until they got to something much more interesting, where they could add examples from the community or from experience. So I trained on that just straight away. And this is kind of how I explained it at the bottom of this slide. I also teach right away about writer's voice and how to do that without just saying opinion all the time. And so right away I could fold that lesson in. For those of you who teach comp, right, that is my first lesson. I have them send me an email with voice on a boring topic. The topic is respond to the syllabus. And yeah, it's a pretty boring topic, right? So they have to put voice in there to even make the email interesting. And I explain about the examples from experience, etc. So it folds right into my first assignment. So if you can do that, if you can fold this training right in just straight off the bat, hopefully you steer them in the right direction right away. And then I had them do this searching of looking at the essay that would result, and then did you get original ideas? Is this what you would write? Is this anything you would write? Could you do it better? Because the answer is almost always yes. And then I demonstrated some of the skills, narrowing the prompt, asking for more complicated information, asking for specific like critical thinking steps like evaluation or cause or reasons or examples. You can see when you do that it gives you these generic things, but also maybe it gives you the idea of, oh, this is where I need to put myself in here. And then I emphasized, yeah, you're just looking for details. You're looking for ideas. You're not looking for finished product. Keep going, right? Picking out one detail and asking for a new list until you get to a topic that's very narrow, appropriate to our very short paper, but about which you know something, so you can put in the examples. And then I had them do a little bit of searching just the other day on synonyms and opposite view to their keywords. Same thing. I said, well, if you got no synonyms or you have no related terms, that might be a point for a list. So I just keep bringing up this listing, like whenever it might be useful. It's just sort of fun. And I see them doing it. I put this slide here and wanted to link to my examples, but those links didn't work. Holly told me an hour ago. So instead I just showed them to you. But anyway, one last step that you can have them do is to get that whole essay, like my trains ones, and have them look at it backwards, right? Like I went from the essay to the list, but when I gave it to them, I had them go from the list to the essay, but to look at the whole essay and notice, yes, this doesn't sound like me. The structure doesn't match what we're supposed to write for the class. And it's going to contain either factual errors or logical errors if I ask it to do any more. So when I say put in examples from McHenry County, it just makes things up, which might be inaccurate. And if I say put in personal examples, it will make things up, which are definitely inaccurate. So, and it makes up sources too. I'm sure we've all heard that. So if the students ask for sources, they'll get that problem. And then I just have asked them, like, now just think about what you'd have to actually change here. You know, the point being you'd change more than you'd save, you know, so it's not worth it. So it's good to use it the way I've trained you, right? Making these lists and narrowing and details, etc. But when you get to the actual paper, you want to make it yourself because you have to put in those accurate examples and use the structure, etc. that I have assigned. Yeah, and this is the exact way that I gave it to them. And another way that is useful in showing how it does not create the high quality product, ask it for instructions on how to do something specific they know how to do well, like a task at their jobs is really good. I did this last semester, a task at their jobs, which they really know how to do, even their entry-level jobs. And then they will see that the product that they will get, the instructions, will not be accurate to their corporation or situation. And, you know, they can discuss that with each other. So I just think that just having them actually do it, right, always is more convincing. So that's another exercise. And then the last point I wanted to make, and then I see I have some chat, so I'm excited, is if I'm applying this to any discipline, of course, there's all different kinds of AI out there that they might be using. But I think the same ideas apply. Train investigate what would be appropriate use, train them in it, show them examples of what they get if they try to use it in a different way, right? And then that's your approach, at least for this semester. And I've been talking to a lot of different colleagues who are dealing with different problems. Even the art teachers, and the graphic design teachers are getting AI product, and then they're training the students in how to properly use it. Now they're very tech savvy, so they're maybe more enthusiastic about that than some others. But it seems to me as though this would be the way that in almost any discipline would be a reasonable approach at this time. And of course, we don't know what AI will be next year or even next month. And it might get much better at putting in voice and accurate examples and accurate source use and all of that. But people who are experts in this tell me that's at least a couple years off. So we'll have to have another Growing Online Learning conference on AI probably very soon, just to keep up with it. But anyway, and by the way, if you, I'm hoping you have comments or ideas, and you might even have disagreement. In my own department, I have people who do not want any personal example from the student, even if it's not phrased with any personal pronouns. And I don't know what to say. There's others of us that are like, well, then what did they say? But you may have an idea that renders that part of it very hard to agree with. But even for those colleagues, I've said, well, then whatever is appropriate for your class, train in that, because if you train in that, then the students know that you know what's going on. And that discourages the wholesale inappropriate AI use that we don't want, where they just try to generate whole assignments. Anyway, thank you.
And
yes.
I have a question. Just now you said the link not working. It's just not working on my side, but it's connected with your SharePoint of MCC. You might be able to show it here, though.
But I did show it. That was the Word document.
Okay, I see.
I just was explaining to people why there were links there that I didn't seem to be using, but I did show you.
Oh, I see.
It was just all where I copied into Word the experiments I ran in ChatGPT. And I just got that idea to use trains and sailing because I know about them. And when I read through them, I was like, well, these are just weak. What I said to the students is just ask it for instructions or an essay on anything that you know a lot about, that you know how to do.
There was one question in the chat and ask, with your ChatGPT examples, are you using the free version 3.5 or the paid version ChatGPT 4?
I'm lucky enough to have a ChatGPT 4 subscription, and I was using it for this, just for whatever even better results that might generate. But I have like at school logged into the regular ChatGPT just to see how different it was, and I've watched the students use it. But yeah, those examples were from ChatGPT 4, and they were from just a couple weeks ago. So those of you who are tracking it close know that they're constantly improving it. So I think I made those examples, those specific examples that I was just showing you, late December during break. I was working on it. Yeah. But I think all that would do would just give me a little bit better results, I think more precise, and they still weren't I mean, they still had all those holes.
Any questions, comments? Because we have plenty of time left.
I may have gone too quick. Wait,
Or
hold on,
any-
really. I like this process as a librarian. It seems like using a database builds incredible resources in a more efficient way. Maybe do this, then have the librarians come to class. Okay, so it just so happens, I love this question from Maria. Maria, my librarian demo is today. Okay, so you're hitting me right where I live. And yes, you know how I at least say you can't use the reference databases as a source. Now, not everyone would have that approach. I do. So most librarians that I've ever heard talk about it say your reference sources, and you're mentioning Credo and opposing viewpoints. Also, we have Gale, right? So I actually leave opposing viewpoints out because it pulls up so much popular media, and then students may or may not realize that it's popular media. So, but even if you put opposing viewpoints in there and you just say these are reference databases, then yes, all this same applies, right? You don't want to use that as a source. It's just a background. It's a getting started. That's how I think most people treat the reference databases. Very useful for getting started. The Credo mind map is very similar, where you click on a detail and then it makes you a new map. If any of you haven't seen that, it's worth looking at. In the Credo, just put in any topic, and most of the topics will generate a mind map off to the right. And then you can click on just one piece of the mind map and it makes a new map. It is good for narrowing topics. But it doesn't happen for all the topics, but it does happen for a lot of them. Our librarians do train in that.
There was
Yeah,
a question in
and
the
it
chat.
is AI. It is a different way to do it. Yeah. Sorry, Holly.
Oh, there was a question. And
I'm looking at the question. Sorry, 1 second. The students believe that AI will create artwork and artists will no longer be needed. Personality and emotion will be missing. Yeah. I hope I'm not just being like overly positive. Every time I say that to someone, like there isn't any personality here, and we are talking about creative work, right? They say, oh, that's just right around the corner. I mean, when I just say this to general people, they go, that's just right around the corner. I mean, by the next thing that will happen, it'll have personality and none of us will be needed. And, there'll be no decent jobs left. People do have those fears, right? There'll be no reason to be creative. But when I talk to people who are experts about this, they say that's, if it can come, it's quite a ways off. And it would come because a personality would be programmed into it, right? So that's still not your personality as an actual person. I don't know. Maybe some of you are coders and you have a darker view than I do. But I've been trying, so far am trying to be positive. Did the same kind of thing. Students learned how to use it. Yes, thank you. Learn to use libraries as ChatGPT are not credible sources. Well, yeah. So another thing you can do is ask it to generate a paper with sources, and then just have them go try to find those sources, and they don't exist, but they look plausible. Even the titles look plausible. Oh, thank you. All of you are so encouraging. In your AI policy, mention detection and having students revise. What do I use to detect? We've had a lot of issues for Grammarly. Okay, Kristen. So we had our brand new designer, right? Gave a presentation at our workshop day 3 weeks ago and told us all very depressing news that the detectors are very iffy, right? And may or may not really be detecting AI. Now, my office mate and I had already discussed this in the middle of last semester in desperation because we were getting so many high AI scores. And I had to tell 2 different students this, and you can copy it or make your own version if you like it. I said, well, if this isn't AI and you didn't use AI to write this, then it's just really generic writing and you need to revise anyway. But I gave them the chance to revise. And in a little like conference about what's the problem, right? It's all these generic adjectives, these examples that aren't specific. I doubt this is you, right? These sound like things that are just generic from the internet. And one of them just disappeared from class and the other revised and got it. So I counted that as a plus. Other AI use that Turnitin detected, you asked which detector. I just relied on the one in Turnitin, which in the middle of the semester, last semester, started to give those reports. So for any of you that don't use Turnitin but have it available, it's worth it just for the AI report because it, at first it just gave a score. And now it's giving a whole report and you can actually like make a PDF of that report and show it to the students. It's like these 2 paragraphs here are marked to AI. And I did have a few of them say, but I didn't use it. And I go, well, then just revise and make it better because this sounds like robots wrote it. I think the upshot is we have to make sure a robot wouldn't do our assignment well. I think that's how I'm thinking of it right now. They just wouldn't do it well. But yeah, I used the Turnitin one, and at one point I ran that one against a couple others that Holly's colleague uses and recommended it. Yeah, and Maria, I now am hearing people say it's not effective as an AI checker. I will say though, the essays that I've had flagged 100% were 100% generic sentences with no voice and no specific examples local. And so even if it's not AI, it's not what I asked for. Tell the student due to voice. Yes. Yeah, and Grammarly, another one they're heavily using. Oh, and Mary took the AI course at ION last summer, which I could not take due to, I hope they offer that again soon. Using Turnitin. Yeah. And in Turnitin, if you click on the box where it gives you the score, that's where it gives you that whole report. And just FYI, for those of you who use Turnitin, the students, you can adjust the settings so the students can see their non-originality report and they can see the highlights and everything. And if you want to, you can let them see it and then revise, which I do. I use it as a learning thing. I'm not trying to catch them, right? But AI doesn't have that. They, at least as of last time I checked, right, they can't see their score or their report. And I'm hoping that changes soon, or hope maybe it's even already changed. I'm not sure because I haven't collected one yet and turned it in this semester. But I'm hoping that changes so that we could set it up the same way in the settings and they could see it, when they turn it in. And if they turn it in advance of the deadline of the due date, then they would have time to revise. That's what I really want this to be. Evelyn says, I learned that AI does not have recent information. I think they said AI was 3 years behind. You mean just in the information it uses? I'm not sure. Maybe, Evelyn, you mean like the database that it draws from? I think that might be true. I heard that they set it up. They made the selections to make what is the bank that they draw from. And I don't know how often those get adjusted. Christine asks, what about if robotic writing is appropriate? Yes. What I recommended to some colleagues, and Christine is prompting me to say, because I think she heard me say this, is then ask the students, instead of examples from the community and their own experience, like I do, ask them for examples from specific readings that you did in class, or better yet, from class discussion, because they wouldn't have those if they weren't paying attention to discussion or taking notes or attending class, right? And, you know, make sure you reference what we discussed in class about XYZ article or person, right? I think that can work, or compare these two articles or these two people as we discussed. I think that's what you meant for me to say, Christine. And I don't do it that way, but I think that would work. Walk through your process using the checkers. Yes, Jessica, I've had the students swear up and down. I've had it. And then I've run it through other checkers. And the most spectacular case I had, and I don't get a lot of this because I didn't get a lot, but I had several, right? Like last semester, I think I had about 8 times that I had to tell a student to rewrite or completely redo the paper, or at least rewrite certain paragraphs. 8 out of about 55 times 4 times 3 papers. So 8 out of 150 papers, let's say, ish. I had to do that. And I did have one student swear up and down, No, 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 I didn't. Okay. I'll double check it. And that's when I asked Pete Lilly from MCC to double check it through some other AI checkers. And he didn't get 100% score, but he got like 78 and 83 or something like that. So I was pretty sure it was AI, or mostly AI. That student disappeared from class with an like vague apologetic note from his mother. So yeah, he just was saying, I didn't do it, but he did. And I think if you get it from more than one checker and it doesn't meet your assignment requirements anyway, maybe I just give it a low grade. In the last couple of weeks of class, I got maybe 3 papers with pretty high AI scores, like 40%, 50%. And because there was no time, the semester was over, I just graded the paper and then reduced the percentage that was AI. So they were all F papers because they weren't very good in the first place. And I did handle final grading that way. And it's an option, obviously. All checkers are really unreliable. 26% accurate. Holy moly, Julie. Yes, our course designer gave us the same message. So all I can hope is that the checkers will improve for those of us who want to use them. I'm also hoping that we won't need to use them if we tweak our assignments so that it would be much harder for the students to actually meet the assignment requirements using the AI. Came back as AI when you'd written it yourself. I had the opposite experience. The very first thing I did was I had AI write me I had ChatGPT write me an essay, and then I wrote an essay on the same topic and I ran them through. And the ChatGPT, and then I changed computers and I didn't log in so that ChatGPT wouldn't see my login. And I asked it, did you write this? 100% yes. And I asked them, did you write this? And I loaded in the one I had written, and it was 0%. So for myself, I proved it to myself, but that was several months ago, and it's worth testing periodically. Maybe we should have a robot draft our assignment. So my colleague, Mary Kasprak, has just, I don't know if Mary's in here. She might be. She has just written a whole course of innovative course materials, which means she wrote most of the materials herself, using AI as what she describes as her personal assistant. And she had to spend about 3 or 4 weeks learning how to get AI to write competent assignments. And she did have to tweak all of them to match like her style and the flow of the course. But she got I mean, she did do it. And she's going to give a presentation on that at MCC on the 22nd, brief, like 10 minutes, but, and she did talk about it at our workshop day. She also had a DALL-E, the art generator, make for her a, like a mascot. And for that was like to represent her. It's a little purple duck. And the duck has like a lot of personality and poses. And so for each assignment or like section of the course, you know, the duck is doing different things. She got that all from DALL-E. But again, she said it took her multiple, like probably 20 or 30 revisions to get that duck looking like she wanted it to. And she had to figure out herself how to write the prompts to get the right product from the duck. And then when DALL-E got the duck right, then she could tell it, put the duck in a construction zone, put the duck at the computer, this kind of thing, so that she would get pictures that would go with her assignments. Sort of awesome. But she is a programmer and a coder, and she teaches digital media. So for her, this was necessary to figure this all out. And it certainly took far longer for her to do it that way than to just produce the course by typing it. Ultimately, it took longer. But she is advocating to all of us to please use it for help in generating and doing our work, not our grading, but writing assignments, writing rubrics. Ooh, she did a whole little, Holly's going to get more training, I think, from Mary too. Adjusted to the rubrics. Yes, exactly. When the language sounds really general. Yes, wait a sec. Who's saying that? Jeannie. Yeah, and I'd up the penalties for factual error, and logical error too. I mean, my penalties are already pretty high, but just depending on how high they are, because that's a way that it's there, even if the detector doesn't detect it. There's those errors are there that AI generates. LMSs that have AI built right in so they can use it to generate rubrics. Yes, I know. Although I did notice that everyone says you'll still have to tweak it. Yeah. The Plus version has access to the full internet, not limited to data up to 2021. Okay, good to know. I have the Plus because Holly got a super cool grant for, I think, 12 of us, Holly, to have the Plus version, and I've been using it, but it's possible that the colleges will have to sort of ante up for that. There's Daniel commenting right there. I've just been talking about him. Probably AI wrote the mother's note. It's possible. It was a little bit vague, but I didn't blame her for that. Oh, ESL, yes, great, where you see the differences. The foreign language instructors have been telling me this for 10 years, right? They know when the students have used the online translator to do their homework versus actually doing the translation. And then, you know, because they keep up with it, they can continue to tell, even as the online translators improve or make different mistakes. Yeah, they're not perfect. It's the same here. No AI is perfect. I mean, think about the voice translation in your voicemail, or you know, where it translates to text or anything else. Thank you, Wendy. Oh my gosh, I love how many questions there are here. We don't want the students to drop. Want to use the incident as a teachable moment. Oh, Ed, our admins told us to go ahead and fill out a discipline form for each event, because they wanted to see how big the problem was. And I'm gonna admit I didn't. Okay. I used it all as a teachable moment. I had individual conversations with the students. I wrote an explanatory email. Then I made sure I talked to the student individually. For the online ones, you know, I got them to Zoom with me if at all possible. Yes, I feel strongly that it's a teachable moment. It's just like every other plagiarism policy you might have, right? Although they're a little bit less likely to like instantly cry. You know how usually when you catch them doing plagiarism, like you're like, we need to discuss this paper and, you know, crying. But they're not quite as likely here because they might assume that we don't know. But I think if we just make it clear at the beginning that we do know, it helps. Copying from the internet, which they don't understand. So I don't know if this is helpful, but for a long time I've done this very small exercise regarding why is copying not fair, you know, impolite, not what we do. And I just have had the students, like one student tell the other of the proudest moment of their life, right? Like when they won state in the track meet, or, you know, they got an A in this impossible class, or they landed the lead in the play, or whatever it was, right? And I use the sailing story for mine. And then I say, now the other person, pretend that it's your story and tell it back to the first person as though you did it. And usually they barely even have to start and they get it, right? That's just theft. It's theft. You have not just stolen their words, but their life, right? And yeah, I don't know if that would work in any other class. I've done it. Some of this cultural differences about how plagiarism is. Yes, as far as I've ever heard, the Far East, there's no such thing as plagiarism. If you copy from someone, it's a compliment. A lot of those countries not too good at following patent treaties either, by the way. So there are definitely cultural differences when it comes to these things. And it's also not as important in some cultures to come up with your own ideas. It's just not prioritized. ChatGPT doesn't have knowledge of whether it wrote something. Well, I'm going to save that link. I have had it go both ways, where it knows and where it doesn't know. So this is useful. Crying doesn't work on the job. Thank you, Ed. Yes, the revision is good for them anyway, no matter what. Thank you, everyone. That was awesome. I've never had that many comments, but it's such an unbelievable topic, right? That we're all wrestling with. So thank you very much for all that. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Holly, I think I've gone through all the questions, unless you see one more. I can pass back to you. I'm sure you have a little script to close out here.
Also, please note that we'll be sending out a conference evaluation after the event, so keep an eye out for that. We would greatly appreciate your feedback. At 2 p.m. Central Time, it's Empowering Educators, Integrating AI as a Faculty Productivity Tool in Higher Education, featuring Lisa Ward of Southwestern Illinois College. We look forward to seeing you then. Again, last reminder, the link to attend the live sessions can be found on the conference website at eoco.net. So I know today there are some problems, sorry about that. So you may go directly to the conference website and click join 10 minutes before the session, or check your registration confirmation email. If you have any questions, please reach out to Jeff New, which is jeff.new@illinois.gov. Some people ask for the recordings. Yes, recordings of these presentations and handouts will be available at the conference site on eoco.net after the event. Thank you and have a wonderful day.